Hi, this is Michael Waits recording live from Money 2020 Asia 2025 in Bangkok. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of Insurance for the New Possible, where we discuss the future of finance, technology, and insurance. Our next guest is Dan Krstevski, the Chief Operating Officer at Dana ID. Thank you so much for coming to the show and for joining us at Money 2020 Asia 2025. Dan, how are you doing?
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me. I'm doing really well.
It's my complete pleasure. So Dana has become one of Indonesia's leading digital payment platforms. How do you envision its role in transforming the financial landscape of Indonesia?
I'll start by giving some context on Indonesian market overall. We launched the company in 2017. Our first product was launched beginning of 2018. Indonesia has about 190 million smartphone users with data plans.
Okay.
So that means, and our reference there is number of YouTube users, number of WhatsApp users in the country. If we sum up all the banking apps combined in the country, adds up to, on monthly basis, adds up to about 100 million unique users. Okay. So there are still about 100 million users in Indonesia that have all the needs for payments, right? And they have the means for payments. They have access to smartphones, they have access to internet, but they don't have banking apps. And I see that as a huge opportunity for players like us, right? Specifically for mobile wallets. And we've been able to capitalize on that for the last 7-8 years since we launched. Now, on this note, we started relatively simple. In fact, for the first 6 months of our operations, we didn't even have our own app. We were just a payment method embedded in merchants' websites or apps, enabling users to create account, top up Dana balance, and then make payments without interacting with us at all. And then
was that on purpose? Do you know what I mean? Like, did you know it was coming, but you said this is an easy way to get people to use us first?
We always knew that we want to centralize the user experience around our own app. Right. But we didn't have our own use cases. So when we launched, we had to build all the rails with banks. We had to build all our payment infrastructure, make sure that merchants prefer to use Dana, get the initial set of users from these merchants, and eventually start bringing them to Dana app. So I think it was sort of it was necessary that we start this way, and then towards the end of 2018, once we launched our Dana app, we started expanding services like money transfers, which eventually did really well. And fast forward to today, we cover pretty much all the daily necessities for payment in the country. And then the way we look at ourselves we are sort of the link between the banked and unbanked world, which is currently split almost equally, right? At least based on number of unique users, but as well as link between the formal and informal merchants. Indonesia has still very large number of micro merchants that are either excluded from the financial system, right? Or they may have bank accounts, but the users that they serve don't actually have bank accounts. So from that sense, we want to be the link between banked and unbanked, and then formal and informal merchants. So two questions to follow up, if you don't mind. You said that there are 190 million people that have a smartphone. That's right. So they all have access to potential bank applications, right? What prevented those other 90 million people, or almost 100 million people, from joining the previous 100 million people that were already doing it? Like, why were they not being served? I think prior to the digital banking days, right, the only way for you to create account, and in fact, for many of the traditional banks, that's still the case. The only way for you to create account is to visit a branch, right? Right. And given how wide how diverse the country is, it is extremely difficult to build nationwide infrastructure in Indonesia. So banking branches are not widely available outside tier 1, tier 2 cities in 18,000 islands. It's hard to build a lot of branches. That's right. That's right. And I don't know, 5, 6, 7,000 inhabited islands. So definitely very challenging infrastructure. While for digital players, it doesn't matter whether you're in tier 1 or tier 4 city, the way you create Dana account is exactly the same. Right. That has definitely helped. So how did you get people to create the Dana account? Like, how did you get them to know that it was possible to download it on their phone or to just use it? What was that process like at the beginning? The first set of users did definitely come from the merchants themselves. So you go on checkout, you see this other new payment method called Dana, you click on it, and you're even able to register account, top up your account, and make payment. So you don't really need a separate app for that. And then over time, once we launched our Dana app, there was a lot of, initially there were some user incentives, and then over time there was a lot of word of mouth between the users on what the value is.
Right.
I'll give you an example. If you go in tier 3, tier 4 cities in Indonesia,
Right.
Essential services like mobile top-ups, right, are more expensive than tier 1. So customers in areas, well, because there are a lot of intermediaries in between. There are a lot of agents, so and a lot of these transactions happen in the offline world. So if in order to build that infrastructure, everyone needs to take a cut, right? And everyone takes a cut basically by adding higher price to the end customers, which is not the case for digital for the digital world. Like distribution cost, whether it's tier 1 or tier 4,
it normally goes the other way around. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So users that technically earn less are paying more for basic services, which sounds wrong, and that's something that we also want to help change.
So you also mentioned, I don't think you said non-traditional merchants. I can't remember the word that you used. But you said informal, yeah, part of the informal economy. Does that include the warungs and stuff like that?
That's
like what are these informal merchants?
Official numbers in Indonesia are about 60 million, which is quite massive, which means basically one person in every family has some business.
Yeah.
Right. It can be being an agent on the street or some small online shop. These are not non-registered businesses, but they're a very important part of Indonesian economy.
More than 1 in 4 people.
1 in 4, yeah.
More than 1 in 4, actually, yeah. Because
more than 1 in 4. That's right. That's right.
Right. To get to that number. Sorry, go ahead. You were saying.
So from that angle, it's very important for us to serve both sides, and I think we've done a really good job, especially tier 3, tier 4 cities. Financial inclusion is. I think we are definitely moving in the right direction there.
So, where do you think insurance fits into this long-term vision of what's already happened, but what's going to happen going forward?
Insurance is very interesting for us because we started as a very niche add-on product to an existing transaction.
You mean the insurance product was niche?
Insurance products for Dana. So if you want to make a mobile top-up transaction, we will add ability to have phone screen protection. If you want to dine in at warung, we will add safe dining plan insurance. If you want to make sure that the recipient gets the money instantly or within certain SLAs, you can add priority transfer insurance. And although we have scaled this quite significantly, the reality is the insurance penetration in Indonesia is still very low.
On a GDP basis, it's tiny, right?
Correct. By number of customers, by that have policies, that number is still very low.
Right.
And I think the way we see it is the two main issues there is one around price points.
Okay.
We need to make sure that we lower the barriers of entry, and if that means breaking down a policy into a smaller chunks so that people can actually afford to do on monthly or even daily basis, that will help at least understand the value of the insurance product. And the second one is the education itself. Sometimes the language is too complicated for people to understand that have never ever used the insurance product. So I think these two factors impact the way we look at the insurance business. But nevertheless, we have scaled the add-on insurance. We want to make sure that we scale the other larger ticket size insurance policies as well, whether that's health, whether that's travel or life insurance. That's what we are looking forward going forward.
How do you handle this financial literacy side of this, right? Particularly in a country that we'd already talked about so spread out. And a lot of the merchants you said are informal anyway, which means that a lot of the people that are participating in their merchanting are probably part of an informal economy as well. How do you reach them so that they know how to actually do this stuff?
We spent a lot of time on education, both on merchant side and
how though? Like how? Because you don't have
user
enough.
Side. Well, if they're active Dana users, all the content that you see in Dana is around what is the value of specific products.
Okay.
For example, if you want to, does it make sense for you to buy higher ticket size mobile telco product because on monthly basis that will be cheaper? Does it make sense for you to trust someone that sends you a link to receive money on WhatsApp, right? Can you verify whether the request that you've received through WhatsApp is actually real
true,
or not? So we've done a lot of work around education, both in-app, actually mostly in-app, and even all the marketing messages. If you look at Dana's effort on marketing side, it has mostly been around building brand awareness and education, and less about user incentives and cashbacks.
I want to get to marketing in a second, because one of the offline discussions we had was how the marketing has changed. But I want to talk a little bit more about this trust thing. Do you see, as people use your educational tools, that they then start to use the other tools inside, the financial tools inside of the app more often.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think users that cross-sell is extremely important for us. So if user starts using Dana because of money transfers or because of making a transaction on an e-commerce website, it's extremely important for us to very quickly introduce other services, because that's the only way to build sustainable companies.
Yeah.
Payment margins are relatively low, so you need to make sure that you not only help customers make one of their monthly transactions with Dana, but you want to convert this into a daily use case.
Right.
And I think that's the part that we have been quite successful. And a lot of it comes from how we've engineered the promo engine, how we've engineered the recommendation system, how do we run incentives for the customers. It's all about moving from one use case to another. And once they start using, and especially those customers in tier 3, tier 4 cities that are paying higher prices for the same product, once they come to Dana, it's no-brainer that they will just continue to
they're going to stop using
Dana.
This higher price product and start using this product.
And they will start trust you for other products as well, because they can make clear reference. If these guys have been fair for us for mobile top-ups, then they will be fair for bill payment as well. Right.
Okay, that's a great point. So I want to talk about marketing a little bit as well. How and why is maybe more important. Did Dana's marketing strategy change over time? And what have been the kind of results for this?
We launched our products in 2018. And at that time, common practice was mobile wallets. To get adoption, you need to rely on user incentives. So that was a period where cashbacks were everywhere, online, offline. If you, in order to be incentivized to make payment, you're getting certain cashbacks. In the whole history of Dana, which is 7-8 years now, incentives have played very little role. We did that at the beginning. We realized it's very costly. We sat down and we said, okay, guys, we have to figure out other ways to scale this company, because clearly this is...
otherwise you're just spending money. It's not sustainable, right?
Correct. So we've put a lot of focus around building brand awareness that Dana is actually a safe platform for you to keep your money and make payments, and at the same time educate the users on what the value of Dana is across different use cases, from money transfers to bill payment, and then eventually financial services as well. So again, in that 7-8 year history, incentives have played very little role. They were important and they are still important. It's not that we don't provide incentive for the users. It's important for certain use cases. That's still very important. But luckily, I think we've been able to scale the platform, and very large number of Dana's customers are actually organic. Once you have this organic, and what we see is very strong organic growth, very strong retention rates, and more importantly, cross-sell between different use cases. So Dana becomes a daily use case for the users, not something that they do once a month.
Can you talk about the growth in numbers after you changed the marketing strategy?
We stopped large-scale incentives beginning of 2020, and that was right before COVID, and it was not related to COVID. That decision was, okay, we have this initial set of users that we have accumulated. Let's try to challenge ourselves and our teams and see whether we are able to maintain either the growth or maintain even this user base if we don't provide incentives. So what has happened initially, obviously, we slowed down the growth. In fact, we didn't even have growth in at that time. KPI would be monthly transacting users. But what happened is those users that were already acquired, they started transacting more and more on our platform. And then eventually, once we started adding more and more use cases, and once we started adding more acceptance points around the country, both online and offline, we saw our growth continue. So definitely there was a one-time impact, cut spending significantly. Slow down the growth or even stagnate, and then eventually, once we build the rest of the use cases, the growth continued. So the message has been the same both to customers and to our teams, that we really need to focus on building the infrastructure and the product for payment, instead of providing incentives as a means of growth.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so we're at a fintech conference. Everyone's talking about fintech, but Dana kind of emphasized being a tech fin company, which is flipping stuff upside down or backwards. I don't know. You make the call. But what does that really mean?
For us, it's a subtle message that technology comes first. Finance follows. Finance is a use case. Technology is the infrastructure. We've built the infrastructure. In fact, up until today, and for almost the entire history of Dana, the large tech and product have been more than majority of the number of employees in the company. So we've always been very lean across all other sales functions, finance and customer fund, and all other teams that we have. And so from that angle, we've always been product and tech led. And we just happen to be in the financial industry, and we are building financial use cases. That's the analogy that we are trying to use, but we don't put too much. I personally don't put too much focus between fintech and tech. I would not be offended if someone tells me Dana is a fintech player.
But there's what's the right word? There's a philosophical bent to this, and that is
That's right.
We're a technology company.
That's right.
We implement technology on the financial surface, but we think about tech first.
That's right.
Right. So I think that's fair, and I think it's differentiating at some level, right?
Could be.
Could be.
We don't think too much about it. For us, it's okay. Let's build the infrastructure.
So let's talk about some recent technical innovations that you've implemented either recently or since the beginning to help financial accessibility.
The way we look at this, there are so many things that the company has evolved quite a bit.
It sounds like it.
We are the most, in fact, we are the most used finance app currently in the whole of Southeast Asia.
In all Southeast, well, it makes sense. You're in the largest country. So.
Largest country, large number of unbanked population. So it does make sense. I'm Macedonian, so for me, when I make a reference, Macedonia is 2 million. Macedonia has population of 2 million. Right. Indonesia is 270. So whatever reference I use from Indonesia is mind-blowing for me personally.
Right. How do you explain that to your family at home, living in a country where there are 270 million people?
It's always a very entertaining discussion. I just recently had a guest in Singapore, Macedonian, and we talked about some of the scale and just what is going on in the country, and they're always it's the same reaction. They're fascinated, right? We look at, I don't know, maybe some Western markets as just because that has been very common for the last 20-30 years, right? But then when they come and visit Southeast Asia and they realize that this is like 600-700 million people region,
it's shocking, actually.
Extremely fast adoption across whether it's ride-hailing business, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's payments. It's always fascinating for them to see this. And also the speed, right? If you compare the speed of the type of products that customers have access currently in Indonesia versus if you just look at what the offering of a European bank in a smaller country.
I would say even in Connecticut, in the United States. Yeah, same thing.
Correct.
I don't think it's that different.
Correct. And then back to the point on technology, given that we are quite diverse now, we have a lot of different use cases, a lot of different teams working on very cool technology. At the end of the day, it's simple KPIs that matter for us. Example, is our app size small enough? Right, not large enough, but small enough. Can I make sure that anyone in the country can download Dana app without being a challenge for his for the type of smartphone, the bandwidth that they use? So from that sense, we put very strict KPIs to our tech team to make sure that on one side we keep adding more and more use cases, right? But then on the other side, we tell them you're not allowed to increase the app size. So there needs to be a lot of innovation that customers don't really see. They appreciate because now anyone in tier 4 city in Indonesia can access Dana, but the amount of engineering involved to get there is quite significant.
But it's an interesting way to look at accessibility, right? Because that was not the answer that I expected. But it's interesting if you understand, for people that may or may not understand the way technology develops, you have to keep the app a certain size because people in the main cities, right, top tier cities, maybe they have access to 5G. But maybe in a smaller city or even a smaller island, they're still dealing with much slower speeds. Not that are their fault, but just because the infrastructure hasn't been built out there yet. And that means that the app has to be light enough for it to be useful.
We had some of these anecdotes, right, that we will be in a team meeting in the company, right, and then I will say customer A complained about very slow access to QR payment, right? And someone from the team will answer, I tried it. It works really well.
Right. And you're
great.
Sure.
On your $500 device, it works really well. Let's see.
On 5G.
Correct. On 5G. Let's see if it works on an entry. So from that angle, we started putting more and more. As we evolved as a company, we started put more and more KPIs and make sure that all the customers are being taken care of.
What a great answer. It works for me. That's the worst possible answer. But everybody does it. So how do you look at collaborations with traditional financial institutions to expand some of the stuff you're trying to accomplish?
Again, we are primarily a technology company.
Right.
In fact, we have partnered with traditional players from day one. For example, if you want to top up your Dana balance in Indonesia, half of the users are banked, half are unbanked, right? So for those that are banked, we definitely need to have a strong relationship with all the banks in the country, making sure that their users can seamlessly top up their Dana account, and then they can use Dana across use cases that might not be available on banking side. For example, if Many of the users in Indonesia do not have access to credit card.
Right.
In fact, credit card is
very low penetration.
Is extremely low, right?
Very low.
And many of the debit cards cannot be used for online payments. So if you look at 2017, and then for the first few years at least, the largest payment method for online payments was still virtual account transfers, which are not a great experience for the users. So from that angle, from day one, it was very important. Let's establish this relationship with the banks, and we've worked with all major banks at the beginning, and then we started going into smaller and smaller banks so that we can cover the entire country.
Yeah.
Now, once interoperable banking rails were available in the country, that just helped accelerate our growth, because what happened is, instead of us doing individual integration with 50 or 100 banks, then we can just connect to interoperable rails, and we are able to get access to the entire country. So that was how we started. But then, even if you look at fast forward until now, we do still work with a lot of traditional financial companies, not only banks, but also insurance companies, to co-create products.
Right.
For example, our users can open bank accounts. Our users can have access to the insurance products. Our users can have access to investment products. Many of these products are actually operated by banks or traditional players. And so that's how we look at that relationship. And internally, maybe the analogy is we are a tech company and we are very agile. Right, but then let's combine the agility of Dana with the stability of some of the larger financial institutions in the country. So that relationship is extremely important from the beginning, but even continues to be even more important today.
I got it. So I'll end with this. Personally, for you, what philosophies or principles guide your leadership at Dana? What do you think about?
Maybe not a traditional management answer here.
Even better. I don't think any of your answers have been traditional anyway, so it's on brand.
I think I would take that as compliment.
It is. It's a deep compliment, actually.
I think when I look at what customers and what merchants want,
right,
it is very simple to determine. For example, on user side, they want lower fees. They want faster loading time in the app. They want lower prices for the products that we offer. If you look on merchant side, merchants want lower payment fees or lower MDR, right? They want faster settlement time. They want the highest possible payment success rate, right? So when you have that set of KPIs that doesn't really change and it's very clear, it's very easy for you to go internally to the team and say, what can we do to make sure that we serve all these clients?
Right.
And continue to lower these barriers or continue to improve across all these metrics. So most of the KPIs, or I wouldn't even call it leadership, is business as usual for us, would be around each of these teams will have certain part to play in lowering or improving these KPIs. So that's how we used to run the company. And then I saw a quote somewhere on we overvalue the short term and we undervalue the long term.
Everybody, yeah.
And couldn't be more applicable at Dana, and specifically for me. Sometimes I'll get upset that things are not moving as fast as I want.
Right.
And then you realize in the greater scheme of things,
it doesn't matter.
It really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
If you do the right thing, maybe it will take 3-4 years to build a product that the merchants and users need, and within those few years, nothing will happen except that you get probably a bit much stronger on infrastructure side. So that would be maybe the second point. And then the third point is something that I really don't want to get too focused or too dragged into our existing business. The scale that we have built on consumer side is massive, right? Yeah. Which means we have opportunity to add significant number of new use cases on top.
Right.
So I try to make sure that we have at least someone in the company that look after what else can we do apart from the default answer. We are a fintech company that processes payments, and then eventually we want to move to lending, insurance, investment products. That's given.
Right.
We've seen it work
in
many countries around the world.
Yeah.
Let's do it. It's extremely important, but let's also figure out what else we can build. So from that angle, I think we should keep our eyes open, and we need to make sure that we have sufficient number of people working on cool new things that are outside the existing roadmap that we have. Got it.
Dan Krstevski, the Chief Operating Officer at Dana ID.
That's almost perfect.
Almost. Sounds like the rest of my life. It was perfect on your side. I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Michael, for having me.
My pleasure.